And welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show here on the Area 51 Sports Network. You're betting home. Make sure to head over to area51sportsnetwork.com/betting. There, you will get a link to our website, our sponsored website, bet99.com. So we do have a deal going on there. So any money that you put into the website up to $600, you get back as a bet back bonus on first deposit. So make sure to check that out. So this week we do have a special guest. If you haven't noticed, we are going to be talking some basketball. We have the man who we will witness down two deep and delicious cakes soon, potentially, or potentially more, depending on how well Brad Richardson does this year. Mr. Bowman, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. My right foot is just screaming right now, going, "Don't eat those cakes!" I'm going to the game this evening, actually, and we'll see if Brett. I have to bring a deep and delicious with me, I guess, maybe, and start downing it at the seat if Richardson scores a goal.
Now, here's the question. I know that deep and delicious have different flavors.
Yeah.
Are you going to mix it up a little bit?
See, I'm partial to the marble one myself, which Wyatt Arndt gives me the gears about often because he's a pure chocolate man. They have like a banana cream one that I've had recently that's really good. So, yeah, I'll probably expand my horizons a little bit. I mean, my boy Brad Richardson returned to the Canucks and he's scoring goals. It's a reason to celebrate and get elaborate with your cakes.
Now, all I remember about Deep and Delicious is that one time I brought it to my party and my mom said that she was offended for me. And the fact that when you put them in the freezer, they don't actually freeze.
That just means it's good and it's harnessing the power of science to not let, the cold push it around and change its state. I'm impressed by that. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything that doesn't freeze, like liquid that doesn't freeze in the freezer is, yeah, like that's a little bit questionable for sure.
I may not be a fancy big city scientist, but I do believe that alcohol doesn't freeze. Is that correct?
I was gonna say, I think the best liquor or liquids don't freeze.
Yeah, get him, Andy.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who doesn't drink, I guess that don't really know that, unfortunately. But
okay, that's fair.
Still, yeah, McCain should be sponsoring you at this point, really.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If the deep and delicious cakes didn't burn, like if you couldn't set them ablaze and they didn't catch on fire, that I'd maybe be worried about.
Mm-hmm. So, like, the question remains, like, which sponsorship do you want better, the McCain or the Werthers?
Werthers, 100% Werthers. Every time I got pocket full of Werthers with me, almost at all times. And every time I offer it to somebody, they're like, "Oh, that's old man candy." No. So the Werther sponsorship is important, just so people realize that no, this is a hip candy. It's what all the kids on the streets are eating. Yeah, Werther's for sure.
Yeah, I love Werther's.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for people who have no idea what we're talking about, you need to make sure to listen to Bowman's other podcasts, including Trust the Process and At the Movies 10 Years Later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
And that's where all of this food talk is. I actually just recently re-listened to the episode where you talked about how you put honey mustard on cheese and then roll it up like a taco or
that's
burrito.
Right. Yeah. You're in a pinch. Need a little snack. Nothing wrong with that.
And it's Kraft singles, so that's another questionable.
I have upgraded myself to Cracker Barrel slices of cheese. I've upped my game a little bit. I do okay financially. I'm not making it rain at any point, but I can afford the Cracker Barrel slices of cheese and not the Kraft singles. So, yeah.
So before we go down this rabbit hole even farther, why don't we jump into some NBA talk, which is why you're here. For those who are unaware of what's going on, it is the NBA play-in today with the playoffs starting, I believe, tomorrow. So it's on the 16th that starts.
Yeah, you're a day behind. So play-in continues tomorrow, started last night, and then the 16th, the playoffs start proper.
I don't know what day it is anymore half the time.
It's all good, man.
So let's start here with the Cleveland Cavaliers versus that team that you don't like to mention from Georgia, the Atlanta Hawks. So right now we got the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 105 and the Hawks at minus 130. Are you going with the Hawks here, or are you taking the Cavaliers?
I will just say that both these teams disappointed me greatly in the first game of the play-in. The Cavaliers failing to stop the Nets from making the playoffs, and the Hawks beating the ever-loving heck out of the Charlotte Hornets. I like the Hawks here. Unfortunately, no, sorry. I would pick the Hawks here to win. I never like the Hawks. Very important distinction.
And then in the other game, which you aren't very happy about, we do have the Clippers versus the Pelicans, with the Pelicans at plus 130 and the LA Clippers at minus 65.
Andy, did you have something to say about the Hawks and Cavs?
No, I was just gonna move and ask you if the Pelicans are a smart underdog bet here.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Clippers being like pretty completely demoralized by losing the NBA play-in championship to the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're just a shell of their like former selves. The Clippers have been a bit of a mess all year. Whereas the Pelicans coming off of the Spurs win, like that's pretty big for them. So I'd probably say the Pelicans are a good underdog here.
Now, who do you think, like, I know that we can talk about Derrick Rose as probably like the most devastating injury in the last, decade or two, but you got to look at Kawhi Leonard. Like, that guy has just been unlucky for his whole entire time in LA, basically.
Yeah, I think he used up all of his luck on that shot in Game 7 against the Sixers back a couple of years ago. But yeah, no, he's been snake bit ever since he's been in LA, which is strange because I know like Kawhi's a big load management person, and that's what they were trying to avoid, was giving him like too much. But yeah, the nagging injuries and stuff, forcing Paul George to be more than Paul George should be, which is like the main number one like ace on a team, has sunk the Clippers. And yeah, I see a hard time for them recovering from that.
Now, as you mentioned, you are still a little bit mad at Kawhi.
I'm a lot mad. Yeah.
But like you gotta feel for him a little bit here. Like it's like whatever happened to him, like in LA, it's kind of, because he's one of the I think that he was part of the 75 team, right? Yeah, like he's probably one of the best defensive players in NBA history. He's won the 2 championships, of course, but it's like he's not that old that he should be getting this many injuries.
No, it's also disappointing for him because, yeah, he won in San Antonio and then he won in Toronto and will never have to pay for a drink in that city for the rest of his life. But then like his like hometown team, like the Clippers, he was excited to go and be that, big piece of the puzzle for them, and it just hasn't worked out that way. So I think in that regard, I'm disappointed for Kawhi Leonard, is not necessarily the age or the injuries, but the fact that his tenure with his hometown Clippers hasn't gone according to plan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's jump into a little bit on the series then. So for those who don't know, the only series that we don't know is the 1 versus 8 at the moment.
Yeah.
And we'll start with, the 76ers and Toronto Raptors, because in case people don't know, you are a 76ers fan.
Yeah, I do a good job of hiding it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pull up this Sportsnet tweet that came out at 4:08, so about 10 minutes ago. And it says, the Toronto Raptors' path to success is simple. If the Raptors can keep pounding the offensive glass and get more shot attempts than the Philadelphia 76ers, it will be a big boost for Toronto in the playoff series. That feels like a dumb moment where it's like, of course, if you shoot the ball more, you're probably going to win.
If they score more points than the 76ers in the majority of the games, chances are they're going to win the series. Yeah.
So why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown here? But before you do here, we'll just give you the odds of that series, if we can find them. Here we go. They are. It has the Philadelphia 76ers at minus 186 and Toronto at plus 165. This is the 6 versus 3 seed. So Philly is 3.
It's 4-5.
4-5.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Philly is 4. Toronto's 5.
Did not want this matchup. Didn't want the matchup at all. I am worried. The Raptors have had a real up and down season as far as like trying to find their identity, but that's a really, really good young team. It's very different than the team they had in 2019, where they were kind of a bit more like veteran focused. A lot of X factors here, one of them being Matisse Thybulle being unable to play in Toronto due to not being fully vaccinated. News that came out about a week ago when the prospect of playing the Raptors came up for both the Celtics and the 76ers, whereas the Celtics, I think, had 3 or 4 people who maybe weren't available for games in Toronto. Scotty Barnes had a heck of a year. I think he's, maybe not the rookie of the year, but definitely, top 2 or top 3 in consideration for that. I think they match up really well. The Sixers versus Raptors games this season have not been enjoyable to watch because, the Raptors did a really good job of kind of neutralizing the Sixers and they didn't really have a ton of answers. I think the biggest X factor in this series is not going to be Thybulle or Barnes or Siakam or Embiid or Harden or Maxey or any of them. I think it comes down to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, one of the winningest coaches in NBA history, but also owns several dishonorable distinctions as far as playoff collapses. And just from watching more intently the last couple of years, he's been the Sixers coach. Not a great coach. Doesn't make a lot of good adjustments. He can't win a coaching duel. Like, he has to hope his players on the floor outplay the opposing players. But I know Nick Nurse is, a pretty good coach and good at matchups. So I'm very worried about Doc in the series. And I was talking with Joshua Griffith and Sean Warren, my cohorts at Van Slam on this very same Area 51 network. And I obviously hope the Sixers win. And I hope they win and then go on to the finals and win that and everything. However, it would almost be advantageous for them here to get, shocked and embarrassed by the Raptors in the first round. And then off season, Doc Rivers is gone. Tobias Harris is gone. They bring in another max contract and they can go all in for a run next year. It's going to be tricky. This is one of the closest series to call, I think. The odds are, pretty much where I thought they'd be, but I'm not sure. Who do you guys like in this series? Do you like the Raptors? You like the Sixers?
You know what? For me, the matchup I'm interested in is Joel Embiid versus the Raptors, because it seems he's had a pretty dominating season except versus Toronto. Like, I don't know what it is about Toronto, but he just hasn't been the same guy. And, if you take any best player, especially in the NBA, off, not the best player on the team anymore, it's going to cause some issues. So I still think Philadelphia will win, but I guess I'll ask you, like, why do you think Embiid's had such a hard time and what can Philadelphia do to get him back?
I don't know, because what I've seen from the Raptors has been pretty much what he's faced with a lot of teams, is he's been facing double and triple teams like all season. I think where the double and triple teams start with Toronto and how they use their defensive deployment has been something that he hasn't been able to get around, because I've been watching this guy take double teams and find players out of it or take it himself and make contested shots all season. But just the way the Raptors have approached it, it's a very Raptor-like swarm. I think I saw somebody post the picture from like Jurassic World where it's Chris Pratt and he's got all the Raptors surrounding them and said, yes, what it's going to be like for Joel Embiid. And yeah, pretty much it's been like that all season. And I think it comes down to like a Nick Nurse coaching thing where he's just really good at defensive deployments and knowing how to shut him down.
Or is it that he just keeps getting distracted by Jack Armstrong's calls on the sidelines?
I hate Jack Armstrong so much. Hate that guy. Hate him. I am not looking forward to hearing him call any of these games because I'm psyched because it's like playoffs. I have league pass for the 76ers, so I watch all the games and stuff. But anytime they're playing Toronto, I'm subject to the local, like the Toronto Canadian broadcast and Jack Armstrong. And we're just in the group chat with the Van Slam boys. And I'm just going off every time he, goes over the top with something, just losing my mind. So not excited about the prospect of Jack Armstrong in my ears. I'll tell you that.
And just one final question about this series. What is it about Australian players in Philadelphia that there always seems to be problems?
Thibault, you were the guy, man. Everybody loved you. He's great. He's, looks like a sweet boy. Great defender. He's come on this year as, an offensive threat, not, to the level where they would need him to be. But everybody loved Matisse Thibault. And then this all came out. And yeah, man, when it comes to Australians, I would say in the future, if they're looking to draft somebody, take a look at where they're from, where their background is. And if they're from Australia, maybe go with somebody else.
Yeah. I do wonder if this has to do with like maybe he has the Johnson & Johnson one shot or something like that.
Yeah. Did you see what his response was? What came out?
No.
So he elaborated on it after their last game against the Pistons or Pacers on Sunday. He elaborated on his vaccination status and that he got the first shot and then learned that it's not 100%. And even though he has his first shot, he can pass it on to people and still catch it. And then he decided, nah, further shots are not for me. Because he grew up apparently in a very holistic, Eastern medicine household and stuff. So he got the first one, but he didn't understand it's not 100% because vaccines, most times aren't, not getting into the science. But so he just opted not to get any other ones for that reason, which is his choice to make.
Yeah.
Moving on from that one.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into some of the other series because in case you didn't know. Oh, so wait, sorry. Before we do that, they do have a bet on what the series final is going to be. So Bowman, we'll throw it to you. What is this series going to end up being?
Sixers and 6.
So is that what you mean? What, Sixers 4-2?
Yes.
That pays out at plus 480 on the site.
Yeah.
Okay, so
talk about that other Australian and his team.
I mean, we can jump to the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics. Now, this is a pretty big series because of the whole Kyrie Irving stepping on the Boston logo on its head. He was the one who said that he wanted to sign in Boston for years to come as well.
Yep.
He also sat out most of the season because he refused to get vaccinated. And then they have that other guy that also doesn't take shots when he needs to.
Mm-hmm. Those Australians, something about him. Yep.
But this is an interesting series because it's even though it is a 2 versus 7 with the Nets being the 7, this is very much a upset special. Right
Oh yeah. This reminds me, and this has been the way with the Nets have been destined for the play-in for a while, and that no one considers them to be a true play-in team. I was really hoping Cleveland would upset them. This is going to be a pretty even matchup. It reminds me back in the day when the Canucks were the 1 seed versus the Kings as an 8 seed. And that was the deadliest 8 seed you had ever seen in the NHL playoffs. So the news also came out that there have been some frustrations apparently growing in Brooklyn with Ben Simmons. And it looks like he might be on track to return for game 4 of the series is what I'm hearing. How he gels with the team will obviously be interesting. But yeah, pretty evenly matched teams. Celtics, give them credit. Halfway through the season or just before halfway through the season, the Celtics were a joke. Maybe going a bit further back, but I remember reading in November, December that they're having players only meetings and they're just yelling and pointing the finger at each other. And they were in complete disarray earlier on in the season. And they really, really managed to turn it around. A lot of talent there. I will say this for both the Sixers and the Raptors. Their path to the Eastern Conference Finals is quite easy if they can survive or get past one another, because you're going to have the Heat and Bucks and Celtics and Nets all fighting it out on the other side of the bracket, which is a big boon for those teams. In this series, I like the Celtics. And I like them in 7.
So Boston Celtics are obviously the favorite at minus 148, Brooklyn Nets at plus 125. Now, this also, you talked a little bit about Ben Simmons there. It does raise an interesting point. He hasn't played all year. And, the validity of why he hasn't played is questioned, of course. But that has to do with mental health. So you never really know what's going on with everything. But would you trust him in the playoffs at this point? Bringing in somebody who hasn't played all year and it hasn't been injury related.
Well, I think recently, since he's been in Brooklyn, they've claimed that it's his back, and it's been his back that is strained. I know Stephen A. Smith, or I think it was Stephen A. Smith's like, what did you hurt your back doing? You're not playing basketball. Yeah, it's weird that you would then, his first game since last June, the infamous dunk not taken against the Atlanta Hawks, that his first game would be a really high pressure situation being in the playoffs again. I think depending on where their series is at in 4 games, because that'll be in Brooklyn. If he debuts in game 4, it'll be in Brooklyn. And I feel like that fan base, that couldn't be a better scenario for him as far as having a supportive fan base excited that he's playing and really getting behind him. So if that's what his thought process is he's coming in at a time where he'll be the most valued or appreciated, I get it. And it's, borderline smart.
You talk about like what did he do to hurt his back, but if you don't remember, what was it? Years ago, Brent Sopel like injured his back picking up a cracker off the ground.
That's right. There have been a couple historical injuries in sports that have been pretty funny. I can't remember the names, but there was I think another NFL player who slipped on a McDonald's cheeseburger wrapper and messed up his back. And I think there was famously a baseball player, I think maybe for the Cardinals years ago, who hurt himself playing Guitar Hero. Just really getting into it, which, who hasn't been there?
And then there's us who hurt our back standing up or getting out of bed too quickly.
Oh, have a bad sneeze, and then you're out for, you're on the 15-day DL because of a rough sneeze. Yeah. Awful.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Okay, so why don't we jump into the Milwaukee Bucks versus Chicago Bulls, because this is the 3 versus 6 seed. This one is very interesting because the Chicago Bulls have kind of fallen off late. They were the number 1 seed for a while there. Like they looked like the team of destiny, and then they kind of came back to where they should be. And then you got the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis. So right now, that series is Milwaukee at minus 1,250, and then the Bulls at plus 760. Do you think the Bulls can pull off this massive betting upset?
Nope. I got Bucks in 5 here. This was the one that I really wanted for Philly, because much like Philly has had problems with Toronto all season, they've absolutely owned the Chicago Bulls like all season. So, the Bulls kind of down the line down the stretch were a little bit exposed. I think that might be one of the lesser teams in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs, and I do not imagine they'll be around for long, which is, surprising because they were so hot for so long. But I like the Bucks here.
Is it as simple as Giannis is just by far the best player in the series and is going to dominate?
Yeah, he's really turned it on in the last, he wasn't in MVP consideration really at any point in the season, maybe like an outlier, like number 5, number 6 around there. But then he vaulted himself in these last 2 months into, top 3 conversation. And there are people who I've seen a snippet of some voting, and there are people who have Giannis as the MVP of the entire league this year. So he's getting hot at exactly the right time. And when that guy gets going, it's tough to stop. I don't know if there's one singular player in the NBA when they get hot that is as difficult to stop as Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of covers the East for now, because we don't know who that 8 seed is. But I'm assuming you're going with Miami to win that first round matchup.
Yeah, most likely. Again, Miami hasn't really impressed me. That's one of the weaker 1 seeds I feel like I've seen in years in the NBA playoffs. You look at the 1 seed over in the West, even the 2 seed over in the West with Phoenix and Memphis. Like those are powerful, powerful teams. And Miami has been just up and down for most of the season. Miami benefits from it being a pretty tight Eastern Conference, and everybody basically, from 2 all the way to 6, just taking pieces out of each other like all throughout the stretch here. So yeah, I like Miami in that series, but I don't have them going very far at all in the playoffs.
Yeah. If Miami was in the West, they'd be either a 3 or 4 seed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So why don't we jump into the West here? And we got the Dallas Mavericks versus Utah Jazz series. This one is interesting because I know that there's been questions about Luka's health.
Yeah.
Dallas is at plus 250. Utah's at minus 313. And you guys have talked about this. Like Utah is like probably one of the most like boring teams in the NBA. Like nobody talks about Utah, yet they're like constantly good.
Yeah, they're quietly good. Like Rudy Gobert, multi-time in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year and winner of Defensive Player of the Year. I think Donovan Mitchell's a really good player. Like they're pretty well balanced throughout. They just don't have anything, really super flashy like any of the other teams do. But yeah, they're subtly good and have been for a while. Even if, Luka was healthy, I would kind of look at this going, I think I like Utah here.
Yeah. Well, they are the favorites. This is a 4-5 seed. So, or sorry, Dallas is the favorite. But yeah, Luka is the ultimate difference maker. Like if he can't go or if he's not at 100%, this is an easy Utah win.
Yeah, it's over in 3. So if Luka can't go.
Yeah. They got rid of Porzingis. So, that's really, if they had him, maybe. But I don't know. Boban can smile, but he can't really carry the team, unfortunately.
And he was excellent in John Wick Parabellum.
Yes.
I still don't believe. I think John Wick should have jobbed there. I think Boban had him. But Boban got what he had coming for him. He attacked him before the deadline or whatever was up, and then he got killed with a book. What a scene.
Yeah. Isn't there another John Wick coming out?
Yes. I don't think it has a fancy subtitle. I think it's just John Wick Chapter 4 at this point now. But I'm looking forward to him getting back into John Wick suit because that last Matrix, woof.
Yep, that was a hard one to watch for sure.
Oh, Did you see it, Andy? Did you see the last Matrix?
I did not. I've actually never seen any of the Matrix. They're on my list to watch, but I just got a new puppy about 3 weeks ago, so she occupies most of my spare time.
Yeah. Oh, what kind of dog?
It's a cockapoo, so just a little one. But we just got back from the vet about half an hour ago, right before we jumped on. So she's I think she went to go have a little nap. She's sore from her vaccines and getting prodded and weighed and whatever else. So she's sleeping, but usually she's pretty high energy.
What'd you name her?
Her name is Charlie.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to answer your question, I would like to watch The Matrix, but I find myself watching movies 20 minutes at a time. And I feel like you need to sit down and watch that start to finish uninterrupted. So you're going to have to wait a few months.
Yeah. It starts amazing and then just gets progressively worse as they go on. So
there you go. I'll just watch the first one and call it a day then.
Yeah.
So back to the NBA where, we got the NBA champions Minnesota Timberwolves playing the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant, who should be in I'm going to say this, like every time the Memphis Grizzlies wear the Vancouver Grizzlies jerseys,
it hurts.
Like
man.
They should be fined.
Yeah, that's not. And like if the logo said Memphis on it, like, okay, but the logo says like Vancouver Grizzlies on it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. How dare you? Yeah, it's like putting on a dead guy's skin and walking around it. It's not fair. And also imagine what a deity that guy would be in this city. Like he'd be the Pedersen of basketball if the Grizzlies were based out of Vancouver and Ja Morant was here. It's just so sad. Like I was rooting for them that last game of the season because I needed them to beat the Celtics so that the 76ers could vault up to that 3rd seed. Didn't happen. But he's got to be the most exciting player young player in basketball. He's just great.
So this is an interesting series for you because you're not a big fan of Minnesota because of how they acted after they won. And you got the Memphis, bias there.
Okay. About Minnesota, I joke and I kid, but honestly, good for them. They've never won an NBA title. I think they've doubled their win total from last year. A lot of futility and stuff there. Their fans haven't had a lot to cheer about for a long time. So even though I don't like Karl Anthony Towns, I don't like Pat Bev, never liked Garnett when he was with the Timberwolves back in the day, I do get it, and I am happy for their fans that they have this thing to celebrate. They're obviously not winning the title. They're not even going to make it past Memphis. Like, that is their NBA championship, so good on you. Go nuts. What the heck?
Well, they haven't won a playoff series since the 04 or 03-04 playoffs,
Yeah.
where they beat the Kings and the Nuggets, but then lost. Yeah. Wait, what? Sorry. This is very confusing how it's written. So they beat the Nuggets. Yeah, they beat the Kings, and then they lost to the Lakers in the conference final that year, and then just haven't made it since.
Yeah,
Haven't they?
yeah.
They made it once, but they haven't won a playoff series.
It was like when I supported the Suns out of the West last year, is that was a team that missed the playoffs for 10 years straight, right? How do you not get behind a team at that point, even though they're really, really good now these last 2 years and they're, pretty dominant, and I would argue to say like the smart money bet to win the NBA championship, even though it probably won't pay off very well. 10 years of futility and that level of success, you got to be happy for that fan base.
You know what's also very funny about that statistic? It's the same year the Leafs last won a playoff series as well.
Ah, yes. I remember it, but I'm starting not to because it was that long ago. So
I think they beat the Ottawa Senators or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they can't win like outside of Ontario. That's what it was. It had to be an Ontario team, most likely.
There are players on the Vancouver Giants who weren't even born the last time most of the players on the Vancouver Giants weren't even born the last time the Leafs won the playoffs.
See, those are
series.
Those are the aging stats I like to hear. That stuff is great. I don't want to hear that, if that 70s show was remade today, it'd be based in 2002, based on the time gap of the first series. That's not cool. But hearing that nobody in the WHL would have been alive when the Leafs last won a playoff series, that's the best. That I love. That I support.
So we'll jump over to the last playoff series here. Golden State, Denver. Golden State's the 3, Denver's the 6. Do you think that the Joker can handle Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and whoever else they have coming off the bench there?
That man is about to erroneously be named MVP for the second year in a row. So whatever, Joker's up to, I'm not in support of it at all. I think they're going to get rolled up. I think they were, lucky to get in as a 6th seed. I don't see that series going very long at all. I would have Golden State in 5. They've been a team that's like, they're not as dominant as they were like years ago. Obviously Durant left. They've had some losses, but credit to Golden State for like retooling with Wiggins and having like Steph Curry still being one of the top shooters in NBA history. Like they've been quietly good the last year or two.
The one thing I will say about that, like the Jokic winning the MVP, he did get suspended this year. So I do wonder if that plays into some of the voters' thoughts.
You saw what he got suspended for, right?
I did, but I'm blanking on it.
So it was, I forget who they were playing. I think maybe it was the Pacers. And then there was like the inbound. And then like he goes, and then somebody came and like hit him in the side. And then when that guy turned his back, he ran at him from behind and like shoulder checked him in the back and knocked him down. And there was a big pull apart. Yeah. That is your MVP, NBA? That classless behavior. Do not like that. And I hope this clip never gets seen by his brothers, because those are some scary gentlemen, and I don't want to run afoul of his brothers. But he had a great season. Yeah. Some statistics, yes, he's the MVP. Others, not. But I think the leap that Embiid had this year and how he led that team throughout all the Simmons nonsense, and just the numbers that he put up, like it's, and being the leading scorer in the NBA, I feel like it should be Embiid, but I have emotionally prepared myself for the fact that it's going to be Jokic. The NBA and a lot of writers and media hate the process. Don't want to send the message that tanking for a superstar player is the way to do it. But it's unfortunate, but whatever.
And one other reason that Embiid should be named MVP is the tweet.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, and then Big Fendi should be with him when he wins the MVP. I'm looking forward to seeing the leap Embiid takes in the playoffs this year, because, you know, in past seasons, he himself wasn't a dominant force in any of their playoff series. Like last year, he was the best player. I know they had, Seth Curry was a big part of their run last year, but with the season he's had and with the probability that he's going to like lose MVP, I think he's just going to go absolutely beastly in the playoffs and he's going to have a great run. I'm also very curious to see how Harden plays in the playoffs because Harden's been really kind of shaky. Does he have the jump? Does he have that first step with the hamstring issues? That's going to be really interesting to see how Harden steps up in the playoffs because this could realistically be his last best shots this year and next year if he picks up his option at an NBA championship. And even though he's one of the top scorers in like NBA history for those years that he had, that's an incomplete legacy if that guy doesn't have a ring. So he's got to really step it up and be an absolute beast for the Sixers this year and potentially next year if he wants any hope at that.
So the big question here, give us your NBA final and champion.
NBA finals, I think it will be. The first thing that jumped into my head was a Suns Bucks rematch with the Suns coming out on top. Bucks have a bit of a tougher road in the East. Like I said, Philadelphia and Toronto are like pretty well like set up. If whoever makes it out of that one has a pretty easy road to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. I say that thinking that the Sixers would have rolled up the Hawks in 5 games last year. What do I know? But Suns definitely out of the West. And I'm looking forward to a Western Conference Final Suns Grizzlies. That would be a lot of fun. That would be great. Suns are too powerful out of the West. I see them actually winning the title this year. Their first one in their history. Out of the East, I'd probably say Milwaukee or Philadelphia would be the team that they fight.
Yeah, and it's weird because, you just mentioned 2 teams. You mentioned in the West, Phoenix, and then you mentioned Memphis, but then there's Golden State. I forget about Golden State.
No. Yeah, and here's the thing. It's going to be Golden State in the finals because as we've learned from my prior appearances on the show, do the opposite of what I'm suggesting because I'm great at getting it wrong.
So I have a question for you, Bowman. Miami's the 1 seed, and they're at plus 900 to win the championship. So why is that?
I'd say inconsistency down the stretch was a big part of it. And like their internal team dynamic is a bit of a mess. Butler has never been, I know they went to the bubble finals and everything. But outside of that run, like Butler's never been able to really win or make a huge difference, like anywhere he's been. Kyle Lowry, I'd say, is a real X factor for the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo is, one of, players on that team I actually like. I don't know. I just don't think the team makeup is there and the chemistry is there. And also just like Butler being a bit of a diva, like with the coach. We saw the blow up you guys saw the blow up a couple weeks ago, right? Yep. Where the coach said he wasn't going to fight Jimmy Butler, which I would have liked to see that. But that was just very telling as far as what the reaction of like everybody was. It became a pull apart. But like Kyle Lowry, as soon as that started to pop off, if you guys remember, just like got up and walked away and kept his hands kind of clean of it. So I just think internal strife and drama within the team, if they're down bad in a series or they, really get challenged by, let's say, the Brooklyn Nets in the second round, they're going to implode. They don't strike me as a strong team at all.
Last question for me. Memphis Grizzlies plus 200. Ja Morant, you could argue is probably having the best season in the NBA this year of all players. Does he not, like, the West is weak. Obviously, Phoenix is by far the favorite. Does Ja just not quite have the team around him to take out Phoenix, or what do you think?
Yeah, not yet. And I think he himself is still like relatively young in his first couple seasons here, but they know they have something really special with him. And I think the key there is that other players in the NBA see a guy like that. And if you're looking at some potential free agents who are looking for a place to go, Memphis could definitely be that target. I know that Zion is most likely not long for New Orleans, and there's all sorts of different places that guy could end up. But what if Memphis, was able to put together an attractive package to get like Zion? And I don't think Zion's any screaming hell at all, but I feel like Memphis and Chicago out of this year, both being like hot free agent destinations, I think both teams, even though Chicago's a little farther back, are like that one more piece away from being like elite. And they've got John Morant in Memphis. He's there. They can build around him. And I think that they're absolutely going to, and that team in the next 5 years, they're not going anywhere. And I could see them winning a title. That would hurt. That hurts so much. We'd take a part of that, right? We'd claim in Vancouver a piece of that.
Would we? I feel like
they wouldn't exist without us.
True. I feel like I would. I feel like other people, like your buddy Wyatt, probably not as much, but you know, each their own.
Yeah, I'd hate it so much.
Okay, so before we wrap up here, Bowman, we're just ask you one, non-basketball question here. You mentioned you're going to the hockey game tonight. Canucks have 8 games left. How many wins did they pull off to fall 1 point short of a playoff run or a playoff spot?
I say they win 5 of these.
5 of 8?
Yep. I think they do well down the stretch. Just well enough to be just a little outside.
They're going to have 94.5 points, and the playoff bar will be 95 somehow.
Yeah, I think this is my first game since maybe not Sedin retirement night, but like in that, like just before, I think the Columbus game before they shut down the league on like, I think there was like Columbus, and then they played the Islanders on the Tuesday, and then it all shut down after that. And that's the last time I was at a game. So it's been years. I'm very excited. So.
And your co-host Wyatt there, the stanchion, is on Armies tonight. Are you gonna shoot your load before the game?
I actually might this time. I don't usually partake in shooting my load with Wyatt, but you know what? This time maybe I will. So we'll see. Brad Richardson gets the game-winning goal, and they win 7-6 in overtime.
Ooh,
against his former team as well.
That's right. It's Brad Richardson revenge game, right? He's he's going to step up.
If he scores a hat trick, like what does that mean for the Deep and Delicious deal?
I think I just got to like blend a bunch of them together and then just drink that. I think that's it, because I'm just stacking. Thanks to Brad Richardson, I'm just stacking cakes right now. And, I'm trying. It's summer's coming up. It's, beach season soon. I'm maybe trying to take care of myself a little bit. I can't go gallivanting around eating cakes all the time. So hopefully he chills out a little bit.
Yeah. And, if the Canucks do win 7-6 and Richardson gets the OT winner, then you get a little trophy as well.
Yeah. Good.
You and Wyatt can fight trophies like lightsabers.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Only I actually won mine. I didn't buy it. Shade Throne. Shade
Throne, exactly.
Okay, so before we head out, do you want to throw out all of your, the long list?
Sure. It's not that long. It's still on one hand. I have Trust the Process at TTP Show on Twitter. Find it on iTunes and Spotify. Episodes usually released on Saturday. At the movies 10 years later, watching and revisiting whatever movies were number one at the box office 10 years ago. We just dropped 21 Jump Street last week. Can you believe it's been 10 years since 21 Jump Street came out and changed all of our lives? It's wild.
I hated that movie, so yes, I can.
Okay. All right. So it's been a, nice 10 years for you to put some distance behind it.
Exactly. Yeah.
22 Jump Street is good. 21 is questionable. 22 is good just for that, whole Ice Cube, Jonah Hill.
That scene where Channing Tatum finds out and then runs around the police station laughing his ass off. Yeah, brilliant scene.
Or of course the scene where they're in the banquet hall and he's running around with
green
beans.
The green beans, of course. We've got the Hunger Games episode coming out soon. We recorded that recently, and then coming up in like 2 episodes or so, The Avengers. It's been 10 years since the Avengers assembled for the first time on screens. That's cool. Van Slam at Van Slam Pod. Myself, Joshua Griffith, and Sean Warren here on the Area 51 network. Bit of an issue with like scheduling, getting together the last couple of weeks. We've all been really busy with work, but we'll do our best to obviously get a playoff preview episode in. I mean, it's the playoffs. And then Wrestle Nation at NEW Wrestle Pod. Myself and Wyatt and our friend Mike Paris talking wrestling and the Nation Extreme Wrestling Company operating out of Vancouver, which just had its latest show sell out. And we've got a show at the Commodore Ballroom for Cinco de Mayo. It's a Lucha Libre show. So, yeah, check that out.
You know, growing up, one of my favorite wrestlers was Rey Mysterio. So
he's still going, and his kid's wrestling. It's wild. Yeah.
And then one last question. You know, you talk about Mike Paris and you talk about At the Movies with Janine. Have you forgiven them yet?
Don't do this. Don't do this. For At the Movie, or 19 and a half years at the movies later, Wyatt's fake, now made real show. Yeah, I think I've forgiven them, but my mom was the one that really cut deep. That she would participate in such a farce is really, really line crossing as far as I'm concerned. So her and I are still working through our issues.
Well,
so yeah, make sure to yeah.
What'd you say, Andy?
I was just gonna say good luck to you and your mom working through it.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us to break down the NBA playoffs. We appreciate it. This is one of our longer shows, but very informative. I had a great time. You had a great time. It seems like Adam always looks like he has an average time. So, you know, it is what it is, I guess.
If I can get in here and get Adam to an above average time, that's my goal every time. So, yeah. No, I had a great time. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so that will do it for this week's episode. Make sure to check out all of the shows on the Area 51 Sports Network, including Van Slam, as Bowman did mention. Make sure to head over to bet99.com. That's where we get all of our odds. And we will talk to you guys next week.